to my channel Tea with Nikki and welcome to Frock Tales. I'm Nikki and you can find me more often on my podcast Tea and Possibilities, where I talk about my passion for knitting and crochet. But here on Frock Tales we talk about my other passion, costume drama. Because what is life without a little costume and a little drama? This is the last in a 3-video series about the adaptations of Philippa Gregory's novels about the Wars of the Roses and the early years of the Tudor dynasty. So following on from my last video, The White Princess, we are now looking at the early years of Catherine of Aragon at the English court of Henry VII. Adapted from Philippa Gregory's novel, The Constant Princess, The Spanish Princess was made by Starz in 2019 and aired for 8-hour-long episodes. And apparently a new season is coming. Now, I will state my bias. I quite enjoyed The Constant Princess novel. It wasn't too bad in my opinion. Some of Philippa Gregory's novels are really poor. The King's Curse, which The Spanish Princess does take elements from that novel, is really not great in my opinion, but The Constant Princess was fun to read, even though I take it with a massive pinch of salt. Massive. So as always, we're going to kick off with the plot, and if you haven't seen it, here be spoilers. Now, the Spanish princess of the title is Catherine of Aragon. She is coming to England to marry her betrothed, Prince Arthur. He is the eldest son of Henry VII and his wife, Elizabeth of York. And this is a fantastic marriage. It will make Catherine Queen of England in the future, and it will align England with Spain, which is a powerful ally to have. When she meets Arthur, he is awkward and shy, and she is horrified to learn that he is not the one that sent her the beautifully passionate letters that she was falling in love with. It was actually his younger brother Henry. Yes, that Henry. But after a less than promising start, Catherine and Arthur do come together. They do consummate their marriage. Yeah, because what is history? And they are, in many ways, on the road to a really fulfilling and fruitful life together. But within a few months of their marriage, Arthur dies of the sweating sickness. And that is how his younger brother Henry becomes Henry VIII, and thus begins Catherine's great quest to marry Henry and still be Queen of England. Now, while Catherine is scheming for this, she has a couple of ladies in waiting. Rosa, who is having an affair with a married man and ends up pregnant, and Lena, who is falling in love with the guard Avuedo. So what did I like about this series? I mean, not much, to be honest. Harriet Walter takes over the role of Margaret Beaufort, and she does a good job, but I like her in anything, so I don't know how much of a pro that is, really. I wasn't wild about her portrayal. Again, rather like The White Princess, I just didn't get it. There is literally no sympathy for her. I don't know why scriptwriters and Philippa Gregory have taken so against Margaret Beaufort, but from The White Princess onwards, they really don't even try to make her in any way likeable. And let's not forget that in The White Queen, we've got her being the murderer of children. So, you know, at this point, why am I shocked that she's murdering, you know, the love of her life and, you know, covering up the death of her son for political gain? I mean, why am I shocked anymore? Charlotte Hope as Catherine does what she can. I'm quite happy to see her as a redhead because that is historically accurate. The Spanish accent, I don't think was that great, but what do I know? Elliot Cowan, however, does make an affable and quite endearing Henry VII, and this is the series where I do actually buy his relationship with Elizabeth of York, or Lizzie as she's known in the series. You can actually see that there is true love between them and that he is genuinely devastated by her death, which by all accounts is what actually happened historically. There is no continuity here for me between Elizabeth and Henry's really, really strong and devoted and loving relationship and whatever that was going on in The White Princess. Yeah, so if you're looking for continuity, don't look here. I do like the neatness of the curse because it does tie in with historical fact. So if you missed my video on the White Queen, how dare you? How very dare you? In that, the Dowager Queen Elizabeth Woodville and her eldest daughter, the then Princess Elizabeth, put a curse on whoever killed the boys in the tower, and the curse is that their male line will die out. So obviously in doing so, according to Philippa Gregory's storytelling, Margaret Beaufort is the one who is responsible for the deaths of the boys in the tower. Therefore, by marrying Henry Tudor, Princess Elizabeth has actually cursed her own children. And I quite liked that neatness. Lena is also a great character. She is a lady in waiting for Catherine, and I really bought her story with Abuelo. He and Lena have great chemistry. I thought they worked really well together. I really enjoyed them. I was actually more invested in their relationship than I was in Catherine and Arthur and Catherine and Henry's. They also have actual obstacles to overcome, so that's really nice. It's also really nice to see people of colour represented in these historical dramas as people of high birth. And Stephanie Levi-John does a really lovely job with Lena, and I genuinely found hers the most compelling story. Now, what didn't I like about the series? Well, do you have an hour? I will try to summarise my issues with this series. My biggest bugbear is the liberties taken with historical fact. Now, I have said time and time again, I am not a purist. I enjoy these historical dramas or costume dramas for light entertainment. I don't mind so much if the costuming is a little bit off, and I don't mind so much if they don't follow history absolutely. But honestly, some of the liberties taken here are just, you know, I will accept the creative license of Elizabeth Woodville being an actual witch with actual magical powers. So I'm not over here, you know, being really pedantic about this, really. But when you present to me a Henry that is literally older looking than his older brother, we have a problem. So when Catherine came to England, she was 16, Henry was about 10. And I will give Philippa Gregory her due. In The Constant Princess, the ages are correct. If my memory serves, I believe in the book, Henry has a crush on Catherine from a very young age, which she later exploits. But he is 10. He is not writing her sexy, passionate letters. And yeah, it's all very accurate in the book, up to a point. In this, we have literally got Henry stripped to the waist quite regularly, sporting a six-pack, writing sexy letters. How old is he meant to be? Catherine and Arthur are meant to be like 16. He's what, 15? You know, like any 15-year-old I've ever seen. Honestly, I was so shook. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I kind of get if they're wanting to tell the love story of Henry and Catherine, he needs to be older. But what about telling the story of Catherine's fierce determination to stay in England? What about that story? What about all the things she had to do to stay here? What about exploring in more depth the fact that Henry VII considered marrying her after the death of his wife? What about, for once, not making the central focus of a woman's story the love story? Catherine spends something like 8 years, please correct me if I have that number wrong, but I think it's something like 8 years in England between losing her husband and marrying Henry. She was struggling to pay her servants at one point, and yet we're expected to believe that the real story here is that Henry fell in love with her and was going to fight his father, and also there's a whole other thing with Isabella of Castile, her mother, actually fighting in a battle, and I have no words. Also, I generally didn't think the casting was that great. Rory O'Connor, who plays Henry, he looks really nice, but he's pretty meh. There is no chemistry between him and Catherine. It's just meh. In the book, Philippa Gregory does take extraordinary liberties with the story of Catherine of Aragon. It is my opinion that her union with Arthur was not consummated, because I cannot believe that a woman of that piety would go before so many people and swear to God that it was unconsummated. I just don't believe it. But you know, we take creative license, that's fine. And in the book, she and Arthur kind of fall in love, and it is at Arthur's dying deathbed request that he says, marry my brother and make England the great beautiful country that you and I have talked about. And it is that love that drives her throughout all of the tribulations. And it is only later that she comes to fall in love with Henry on his own account. But in this series, Arthur is depicted as a bowl-cutted obstacle to the true love of Henry and Catherine. And okay, cool. Oh my god, the dreams. I haven't even got to the dreams yet. There are so many dream sequences. Now, there are a couple in The White Queen and a couple in The White Princess, but nothing really that memorable or that numerous. And also in The White Queen, I kind of forgive it because some of them were like more like predictions, and given the witchy element, that was fine. But in The Spanish Princess, I mean, I feel like if you can't get your point across without deciding that you need a hallway full of blood for her to wade through, I think you probably need to look at your script and do some editing. It's just a thought, it's just a suggestion. I mean, and that ties into the fact that there was a general kind of reliance on very clunky symbolism. So after the death of Elizabeth of York, Henry VII goes and sits, I presume, in the Tower of London, which is where the menagerie would have been, and just sits next to a cage that has an aging lion in. And I'm just like, really? I mean, should I just hit myself over the head with a rolling pin? Like, what? And the costumes. Because, look, I keep saying it, but I'm not a historical costuming specialist by any stretch of the imagination. And I do just kind of enjoy them when they're pretty. I really do. But this was kind of edging into Reign territory. And I will cover Reign at some point because it's fantastic, good fun. But this was heading into Reign territory while still trying to maintain this kind of veneer of historical respectability. And I just couldn't handle it. It was so bad. It was so bad. At one point, Catherine's dancing and her, like, what are they called? The things that go under skirts to make them puff out. Martingales? I don't know what they're called, but that thing, she had it on over the top. She had a maxi skirt on and she had it on over the top with holes in it. Why? And then she wears this thing in her hair. Okay, so it's like it goes round. She wears her head down, which is a whole other story. You know, she wears this thing and it goes around her head and it comes up like this. Did any of you watch the cartoon Doug? And you know, Doug, at some point, he like dresses up like a superhero and he has a belt round his head with the end of the belt coming up like... That's what it looks like. It looks like Doug's superhero belt thing. And it's stuffed. Why is it stuffed? Is it so she can take a nap? I mean, I know they would have really long dinners and services and things, and I'm like, but really? It was so stressful to look at, honestly. She would be like gabbing away, and I would just be staring at this thing on the top of her head like, what is that? Why have they done that? Did they buy it like that? Or did someone actually think to make it like that? Would I recommend it? Oh, I mean... Tough question. No. If you're looking for something just to pass the time, something you can get cheerfully angry at, go ahead, knock yourself out. But otherwise, no. Just no. No again. Still no. Why is there another season? Why? Why is there another season? Why? Who commissioned this? It's so bad. I will probably watch the next season for you. I will do it for you and I will make a video about it. So you're welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I will be back very soon with another video about another costume drama. But for the time being, we can lay the Wars of the Roses to rest until season 2 of The Spanish Princess. Wish me luck.